was he born, and what would you like to share about his child or just his birth?
Oh, May 23rd, 1908. So he was the last surviving child. 5. And so there's 6. George, the youngest one, he lived for, what was it, a month? Anybody correct me? I'm wrong? And
right.
His mother was not doing well at that time. I don't suppose she was weak, probably. And as far as the care, I don't know. That's what I remember about your grandpa, my dad. He was born in Erskine. He was born in Erskine, and that was a kind of a tar paper shack, more or less, I guess, in Erskine. I suppose they were still getting their Ole, his dad, was probably getting the house ready, I suppose, yet, on this acreage, just west of our Uncle John, and that was log house. And then they had addition later. I think that's how it would be. That wasn't log, but that's all gone now.
Ben, what did they name him, and is there significance behind the name they gave him?
Not that I'm aware of. Of course, Arthur Martin was his name that they gave him, and apparently sometime between his birth and I think he was 4 years old when they moved to that site, which would be west of our Uncle John. They lived there until, I think, you correct me, you guys, but I think they lived there about 3 years. And I think at the age of 7, he and Uncle John and Aunt Christine were taken care of by their uncle, Amen. Dad was about 4 years old. Then their mother passed away, and then somewheres around or before age of 7 of Dad, their father Ole passed away.
So Dad Arthur was an orphan at about age 8, 7, something like that.
Thinking of Amen, when they were taken in at Amen's, where Dad would have been, what, you figure about 7 years old?
I think that's about it.
And Amen had 3 other foster children that they brought in.
Oh,
and so they worked too on the farm, I guess, with them. Dora and Ole never really were on Amen's place. Dora was the oldest, so she was teaching school. Ole just got in with some other family, I guess. So it was really John and Christine and Dad that were on the original Ole's children that were on the farm there at Amen's place.
Your grandpa, Aaron Arthur, was quite a tease when he was young. He would be teasing Christine quite a bit, and he also was very much of a tease to Marion, I understand. I mean, in some ways, they were, I think he got on their nerves sometimes too, but at the same time, it seemed to be quite a decent relationship, especially with Christine. There was a lot of back and forth between siblings there, evidently.
And there's about the Dad. They were busy working. They worked pretty hard. And I remember Dad mentioning that some other people would drive by, and they were going to go to town where they had Saturday night kind of just entertainment in McIntosh. And Grandpa or Amen used to say, they can go and play, but we got work to do. They were very work-minded, Amen. And he did well on the farm. They had a cow barn, 90 foot long. That was log barn, and we milked. The way I remember, it was 50 cows they milked by hand when he was young. So that was quite a few. Christine, Dad's next oldest, and she would milk. He said she would milk 2 cows while they milked one. He would develop some pretty strong muscles in her forearms. And when some big guy came to arm wrestle, Christine, it didn't work too well. She took him right down. And so he said, well, you just went too fast. So she said, okay, we'll go slow then, and took him down slow. And this guy was very embarrassed, but like gal taking him down on arm wrestling.
There's some other memories of when he was older working on the farm.
It's a bit thing, I would say, regarding working on the farm, then Almond evidently saw some potential in Arthur, and so they sent him then to Crookston, to what was then called Northwest School of Agriculture, I think it was, so the boarding school. Yeah. And I don't think he got, he stayed in the boarding facility there at the school, and I suppose he got home once in a while, maybe just for holidays and so on. But he learned some money and effort into getting him educated there, which is now, of course, is the branch of University of Minnesota, Crookston. So he learned welding, livestock, breeding, and agriculture there. I assume that Almond wanted to invest that in that so that he would be productive, more productive on the farm when he finished his schooling there.
I remember too that Dad mentioned that the school, when they finished 12th grade, they were already, that school was highly rated, where they were actually in college type education by that time.
Yeah.
And then Dad and John both were very mechanical minded, and they took old Dodge car and made a mower out of it. They used another rear end of another car or something, and they made that run the sickle, and I guess it did pretty well. They could mow pretty quick with that, and they did a lot of inventing and stuff.
He had a TD-35 McCormick Deering crawler, and he devised a doser unit with lifting unit mounted on the rear. Some of the bands were from a Model T transmission that he had figured out, and it did a very good job of raising and lowering the doser, and so he would do custom dosing for the neighbors. He also, this would be in the early 50s, moved his old schoolhouse from the northwest corner of the farm to its present location, and he moved it all. He said it was just barely, he said the tracks were digging a little bit all the way, and they were able to move it across an old-fashioned A-frame bridge, and the fellow in charge of the project had measured ahead of time, and he said it was either a half-inch or an inch clearance on both sides, and he never touched any of the side frame while in the process of moving the building.
How did he meet Grandma?
LBI, I guess, Lutheran Bible Institute.
That's a bridal institute, yeah.
Yep.
That was 1930s, late 30s, I suppose.
Late 30s.
What do you remember about their courtship that they've shared with you?
Long distance.
Kenneth Ralph had some insight there. I'm not sure, but I think it was called Prayer and Praise Week, and you were asked if you felt to invite someone there, and they were wondering who's that young lady that came with Art Ramsey, and Kenneth asked them, oh, that's Elmira. So that's where it started.
Elmira, they kidded her that she had arthritis. Well, going up further. So it's arthritis, yeah.
And then, of course, the other thing that Grandpa used to say was, yeah, when we were married, my wife was thirsty and I was thirsty too.
What do you remember about him asking her to marry him, their wedding?
One thing with his motorcycle, he made the decision to sell it in order to buy the ring, and I think either somebody asked Dad or Dad volunteered, and he said, yeah, I did sell the motorcycle, but I got a much better deal out of this.
And I think the proposal was done by letter. There was nothing in person, no knee on the ground or anything like that. It was by letter, and so the courtship was really, very much almost that. Exactly like mail order bride, but in a way, they had met before, but I don't think the courtship developed over the letter writing.
What do you remember about Grandpa when you were growing up, when you were young?
Well, I used to remember we'd take turns in riding along with him on the crawler, and of course that could be dusty and a little bit noisy, but I remember not too many rounds and I got so sleepy, and I think Dad turned around and either walked me or drove up to the yard so I could get in the house and get a nap. I was pretty small at that time.
And Dad was a little bit concerned about the, driving it, because there wasn't much room that if we fell asleep, we could fall on the tracks, and that wasn't good at all. So and I do remember that too, but he laid me out in the field, knew where he left me, and then I took it outdoors.
I'm glad they picked you up and remembered you out there.
Oh, he helped Pastor Grimstead for a while. His health was kind of going bad, so Dad kind of served as an assistant pastor, especially in Trinity and Vernus Church congregations for, a few years at least.
And that's where he got the training, really, for Tokyo. He already had experienced some speaking, and so Lord had him go to LBI and then serve as because Pastor Grimsted's health was bad, so the doctor had only 2 churches for Pastor Grimsted. He had to find somebody for the third, and it was Vernus that he was in mostly.
Yes, yeah.
So he spoke there many Sundays.
What do you remember, what kind of a dad was he?
Well, busy on the farm with, they had the farm repair shop. People would come with broken down, something busted or some mechanical problem, and he'd fix it. So farming was kind of when he got time to do it. And sometimes the crop got in late and things like that because others had repairs to be made. Dad was strict. Which I'm glad he was. That there was, but yet we had fun. And he didn't have a lot of time to play. But I remember a few times that he threw. He was up on in the chimney one time. I remember we threw the ball up to him. He threw it down, and there wasn't a lot of time for playing. I remember, but and we had our jobs to do. I remember pitching manure out of the barn. Milking, we were still kind of young. Mom did most of the milking. We carried water to the cows and fought the pigs and did work with the chickens. And I remember David and I going and closing up the chickens sometimes. And sometimes we got home late. It was dark. And it was pretty scary to go around that there. That's after we got electricity. Going around the silo, it was pretty dark back there. Man, there was all kinds of animals and stuff that we figured were there, So that was, I remember as kids, it was kind of scary for us to go around that corner there.
Remember our youngest brother got scared out. He had to close the barn door one night, and he came in the barn and something growled at him, and he never made it so fast to the house. Dad, something's growling at me. They found out it wasn't an outlet or a switch box that got water in it?
Yeah, a fuse box that got water in it.
Did you ever recover from that, David?
Oh, yeah.
As soon as it turned the light on, the draw of electricity made noise in the fuse box.
What kind of dad was he? He didn't really have a lot of time for us, I would say, because he was, as Paul said, he was always very busy. And he was, yes, a very strict disciplinarian. But he did buy a Dakota, and I think he went fishing once or so with it, and then he thought he had a big fish on it, but there was a turtle on the end of his line. But there just wasn't a whole lot of. I remember on the farm he'd kick a football, and then they'd go sailing, and we'd go do it, and then that was like on his way to the shop or back to the house. We'd always have morning devotions at the table, stepped by R.P. Hawkinson, and in the evening too, then we would have scripture, and then we would have each of us take turns choosing a portion of scripture and reading, and Paul would always find those from Judges and from passages in the Bible, but it was, I would say, I mean, he was very concerned about our spiritual lives, and that very seriously, make sure that we were in a relationship with Jesus. Not a whole lot of engaging one another in playful activities, not a whole lot, I would say. A lot of teasing going on. He would tease us, almost to the point sometimes where it was excessive. I mean,
but the pleasant part, David, why don't you mention about the ice cream episode where we ended up with our ice cream bowls?
I was kind of worried that he was going to get my ice cream, so I was always worried that he was going to go take my ice cream and eat it up, you know. So.
Remember what we did? We all three took our ice cream bowls upstairs. Not only upstairs, but we crawl under their bed, and we were safe under there with our ice cream.
Under the steps too. Under the steps.
Oh, that's right.
In Tokyo, though, I do remember that when we had VBS and things like that, Vacation Bible School, he would play. We played softball, and he would play with us with softball with the Indian children.
That's right. Yeah.
And I remember some of the Indian children said, "Oh, Mr. Ramsey, you can run so fast."
I think my memories of Dad when we were small, taking time for us, is pretty similar to what you were mentioning, Paul, as far as from my part. I do remember David mentioned, there's no doubt he loved us much, but you remember when we were bad, we were sent out in the edge of the woods to pick up a switch, and if it was a little bit too small, no, that ain't good enough. You got to get a longer one. So we paid the price for it, but we benefited as a result of it.
What do you remember as adults when you were grown, memories of Grandpa?
I know when I went into the service, I was the first one of us three that went in. My number was, draft number was getting close. I don't even know what it was, but it was getting close, and I know he was concerned about, what grant, and so we went to different recruiters to check into it. Air National Guard was one I checked, and then it was the Air Force, and Air Force ended up with a test, so that's where I ended up. But I remember when I went into the service, I think it was Sunday morning, and it was early. I had to meet the train in Lakota, North Dakota. I don't know why Lakota, but that's where we had to meet the train to go to Fargo. And then I went to Fargo to get back into the service, figuring I was going to be maybe coming back after, but it was right on to boot camp. And I do remember Dad, he never was in the service. And I remember he had tears in his eyes about, because, he's not knowing where I'm going to end up or what's happened. It ended up all three of us went in the service, put our time in, and tried out every branch, I guess, most of it for the three of us. Navy and Army too, so.
When we all three got in the car to head out to California too, then I think that's the only time that I really saw him getting emotional in school, when all three of us headed out to Los Angeles. Remember him giving me $50 to go to Bible school, and then I think once he gave me $50 to help me in college.
I do remember another occasion situation when he got kind of emotional was when you, David, Miriam, and I think when the kids were small, were going back to either Nepal or Tanzania, I believe. And I suppose the thought going across his mind, do we see them again? I remember he got kind of emotional at that point.
What kind of memories do you have of him? Like when you had children, like with your children.
Remember, he had Kayla and Jonathan up on the tractor bucket, and then he would shake it up and down. He probably did that with Karen and siblings too, probably. But he enjoyed playing with the kids.
Yeah, when we went to Macintosh with Karen and Nathan, Daniel, and Josh, as we different trips, and he liked to play with. I remember he liked to play with you guys, our children, yeah. And
I think he had more time playing with the grandkids. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's no time in retirement.
And I think one memory I have, and this involves you, Karen, and I think the other grandkids too, they remarked more than once that they admired and respected Grandpa. Where was Grandpa in the mornings? Oh, he's down in the office having his devotion and in prayer, and I think that made an immense impression on his grandchildren.
I got thinking about the old house that we grew up in. The wind would, in the winter or any time the wind blew, the curtains would move inside. We had sometimes snow drifts in the winter on the windowsills inside.
Yeah.
Our house would be frozen, water be frozen in the morning, and a pump would be. We had to prime it with hot water to get the leather so it would work. And so Dad, when we came back from Tokyo, he built a house, and he was what was his age when he started?
I think we figured 80 or 81 when he started.
It was that old. And,
because he was 70 when he resigned at Tokyo, and then we didn't get started with the house right away.
No, but he
built. What you guys remember?
That sounds about right. And he built the cement house, and when he built something, it wouldn't fall apart very easy. Had some pretty heavy metal for the eave troughs and things like that. He didn't want to take something apart after he built it. I guess it'd be pretty hard.
What do you value most about him?
I always say his commitment to the Lord, people around him, being a witness to people around him as well as to his immediate family. Sure.
Yeah, his daily walk with the Lord was a real role model for we three boys.